So here it's my view of how the thing living on the world will affect the value of the world. Hello everyone, welcome on this new episode of Digest by Robert. So it's episode number 2, and today the topic of the day is going to be, will NFT increase Ethereum? So first, who is going to be interested by this content? So first, it's every a person interested in Ethereum in the first place, and also anyone interested with anything related to NFT. Little disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor, so that means that it's not financial advice. You should do your own research and don't take my words without doing any research. What Google say? So Google say around will NFT increase Ethereum, that NFT are one-of-a-kind collectibles. In essence, an Ethereum-based token is also a collectible, thus increasing the value based on scarcity. So, as NFT increase in value, the Ethereum used to make a purchase, it will increase too. Developers have not created a currency that does the job of Ether. So, based on this information, Google seems to say that yes, there is a connection in between NFT and Ethereum, and that NFT could increase the Ethereum value. So here I'm going to dig a little bit just to find out why Google can may think this thing. So first, what is Ethereum? So Ethereum, it's a blockchain, a smart contract blockchain that enable to have the smart contract. And smart contract, basically, it's a piece of code that interact in a way of if and then, meaning that if something happen, which is a trigger, then do an action. So it's a trigger action. And so basically, Ethereum is that. It's a blockchain based on a smart contract, which is a code that will trigger an action, trigger something, wait to be triggered by something, and activate an action. On the other hand, what is an NFT? So an NFT stands for non-fungible token, and non-fungible stands for anything that is that couldn't be fungible. So what is something fungible? For example, currency is fungible because you can exchange one currency other the same currency, and both parties that will not have any issue. Meaning that, for example, if I have $1 and someone else have $1, we can exchange this dollar, and we will no one will lose anything because it's the same thing. It's fungible. When it's something non-fungible, that means that at some point this thing is unique. That means that if I have something non-fungible and this other party have something non-fungible as well, so let's pretend we talk about a paint. So I have my paint of my favorite artist, and this other person have a paint or anything else. If we exchange, this thing will not be on the same value base because it's unique. So it's for that. That means that non-fungible stands for anything that is unique and cannot be basically approached another way. And token, because it's something that will live on the blockchain, and that will affect basically a digital ownership on something. So it's what an NFT. And in below, what you see, it's just a presentation of a famous collection, which is a Bored Ape Yacht Club. And today, NFT is seen as anything related to digital artwork, but it's not only that. But the thing to keep in head, it's that NFT stands for non-fungible token, and basically it's going to digital ownership. So, why there is a link between Ethereum and NFT? So first, because Ethereum, it's the first smart contract blockchain. So basically, Ethereum can be seen as a proof of concept for a smart contract. Vitalik, so this white paper was published in 2013, and the project was launched on 2015. But thing is, before working on being dedicated on Ethereum, Vitalik was on a group project on Bitcoin. And what he noticed is that it's very difficult. Bitcoin is a great blockchain to store value and to handle like a coin of for value, but very difficult to handle ownership. And so when Vitalik found this thing, he started his own project, which is Ethereum. And today, Ethereum is the first blockchain smart contract. But today, Ethereum, it's not the only smart contract blockchain. There is other blockchain, and basically all the other try to compete against Ethereum, because Ethereum it's the first, but today all the most part of the market, and I'm going to explain that later on. And here, something that we need to highlight as well is that as Ethereum was the first one, the main benefit of Ethereum is to be the proof of concept of a smart contract blockchain. But come with that some issue. The main issue is that Ethereum today it's working on a proof of work. It's the model of where the blockchain is working. So basically, it's a very energy consuming, and that affect also the network. The network can scale very well because it's based on proof of work. And basically, what is proof of work? Proof of work it's a model in which all the nodes on the network compete each everybody to validate, in fact, a transaction. Every transaction that live on the blockchain need to be validated, and to be validated, that need to be handled by a power. And today on Ethereum, it's done by proof of work. All the other on the right, Cardano, Solana, all the other Tezos, Avalanche, Wax, all this one work in a proof of stake. And proof of stake, basically, it's completely different. It's not energivore anymore. It's more efficient for scaling, for energy purposes, for environment. And the thing is, it's this way because proof of stake, basically, you have the validator of the network to validate a transaction. To do that, you need to stake an amount of the currency of the network. And so today there is two separate kind of type of blockchain for the smart contract. There is Ethereum, which is the first one working on proof of work, and you have all the challenger that work on proof of stake. So regarding the fact that Ethereum and NFT are there is a connection. So there is also a connection because there is more application and dev on Ethereum. So here I'm based my feedback on the two websites below that say that I don't recall the date, but basically a screenshot was done, and on this screenshot 3,000 dApps, which is an application living on the blockchain, was spread on 16 major network. And close to, here we need to do the math, but I believe it's close to 85% of all these applications live on Ethereum. So here it's for the application purposes. For the dev, there is a monthly number of dev involved on anything related to the Ethereum, close to 2,300. So it's a high number, and this thing explains why there is a link between Ethereum and NFT. When we talk about NFT, why we link that to Ethereum? Because here, the fact is there is more application and more developer. But not only there is on the provider side more application and dev, but on the consumer, it's the same idea. And here I take the focus on NFT. And basically you have the layer, the blockchain. On top of that, you have the NFT. And around the NFT, you have the community. And so the idea is to say that as there is more NFT project on Ethereum, the community is more grounded, it's more around Ethereum. It's also an explanation about that. And so here it's only some things that I found it interesting to showcase. It's not accurate, but it's just to picture the concept of what I call here, where I compare Ethereum and the other blockchain, smart contract based. And the idea here, what I try to represent, it's the idea that most of the network world live on Ethereum, and picture that it's around its other smart contract blockchain. So here it's just something visual in which I try to share the same message by the number. So here it's a tweet from beginning of September, and CryptoSlam was giving this feedback. And so based on the secondary sales, more than 75% of the NFT market was based on Ethereum. So this thing prove also that Ethereum it's the number one on this NFT market. And here, if I do the exercise with time, if I do the math here based on the 24 last hours, if I sum up all, so there is Ethereum here, I can add Polygon, which is a sidechain of Ethereum. I can add One which is a sidechain also of Ethereum. And if I do the math in between all these things, I will find the same number, which is Ethereum, all the most value of the NFT market. And here I don't do the math, but if we do that, I'm sure that we will be close to 75 or 80% of the NFT market. So that also proves that why there is a link between Ethereum and NFT. So now that we have made a connection in between why, if we talk NFT, we will talk first about, we will think about Ethereum, because Ethereum, it's the stronger blockchain, smart contract blockchain today, where the NFT world it's grounded. And now we will try to find what give value to NFT. And so, in my opinion, what give value of NFT, it's the scarcity, the utility, and the interaction. So the scarcity stands for the fact that if you are able to define a limited supply, by default, that will create a certain amount of inherent value. And so if you took whatever in world, and if you cap the limit, that will provide inherent value. The utility, it's everything that you can do with NFT, because today NFT can be seen as only for artwork purposes, but it's not only that. The bottom line of this technology is to be the owner of something and to be able to prove it, and this digital ownership will on the near future enable some new use cases, and so what we can imagine is, for example, by owning a token, is to have access to private club in the real world. We maybe that can be to gain some royalties. Yes, that can be to basically to have access to an event, or to have access to an event, but in a VIP section, And so the idea is today, the NFT, it's only the stack. It's a stack, For me, I picture that as a smartphone. The smartphone, it's the stack that enable Uber, Instagram. Without this stack, Uber and Instagram was more difficult to build. And so today, here we are. The NFT technology, it's here, and the new use case will come on top of NFT. But right now, in my point of view, what gives value to NFT? It's the scarcity. I already explained what it is. The utility, it's everything that you can do with your NFT. and also the interaction. So for me, the interaction stands for don't be isolate on a closed ecosystem, meaning that by owning NFT, not only you will own the NFT, but you will be able to bring it wherever you go in the physical world and also on the virtual world. Meaning that at some point, if we talk about gaming, for example, at some point I picture something where you will be able to come with your everything that you own at some point on some game, and instead to use the library of the game, you will come with your own library, and so basically your social proof will follow you wherever you go. So it's how I see the real value of the NFT. It's around scarcity, utility, interaction, and everything enable the social proof at scale and the provenance at scale, and basically it's why I believe it what give value to NFT. And so here to make the comparison in between NFT and Ethereum, what I do is I quote an article. There is not the source here, but the article say that people that invest on a NFT see the value on the things that live on the virtual world, and people that invest on Ethereum are the people that see value on building this virtual world. So it's two separate things. You are either focusing on building the virtual world. So it's the smart contract blockchain side, and it's either believing that where the world is going. So here it's on the NFT, but you can do both. And here to give an example, it's at the right it's a Mona Lisa, and at the left it's the Louvre Museum. So based on what I just said, if you believe on the building the world, you will invest on the museum. And you believe on the things that live on that world, you will invest on Mona Lisa, And so when you do that, either investing in the museum, the Louvre Museum or Mona Lisa, that will affect the value of the other thing, because the two things is connected. Because Mona Lisa, I know that the wheel paint, it's not on the museum, but fans around the world go on the Louvre Museum to see the Mona Lisa. So the idea is the Mona Lisa value increase the value of the Louvre Museum. And also here, I could take some other example, like on the same principle of the world or the things that live on the world. It's imagine it's like me saying invest on TikTok, which is the world, or invest on an influencer of TikTok, or that could be invest on a football club, or invest on a player of this club. It's the idea of there is the thing holding the thing to happen, and the thing living within this world. And here to represent how the thing affect the value of each other, or the interaction of the value increase, I will play a little video.
Everybody knows about playing with dominoes, but what you may not know is that a domino can knock over another domino which is about 1.5 times larger. So what I have here is a chain of dominoes. Each one is 1.5 times larger than the previous one. And the smallest domino is about 5 millimeters high and 1 millimeter thick. And I will carefully place it. And there are 13 dominoes. And the largest domino, it weighs about 100 pounds and is more than 1 meter tall. Ready?
So here it's my view of how the thing living on the world will affect the value of the world. There is an interconnection, and the thing will scale like this in my point of view. So here, if we talk about the inflation, so here I quote the article below. It's now knows that everything related to crypto and blockchain, it's everything soft except simple. But if we took lesson of other industry, basic economic will repeat, and we can imagine that the increase in NFT will have a positive impact on Ethereum. So here the punchline is to say that another article give this same feedback around the fact that we can predict what is going to happen, but if we take the approach around basic economic, the inflation of the NFT should may increase the value of Ethereum. And here I just talk about how those inflation works. So it's either by demand pool, meaning that there is more demand than the supply. It's either by cost push, or by built-in, which is like cost of life increasing. So this three things could happen also for the NFT and Ethereum relation, meaning that if there is a demand pool on the NFT market, this thing could affect the Ethereum value. If there is a cost push, this thing could also affect the value, and if there is a built-in, it's when the price rise, wage rise too, in order to maintain living costs. So here we can have the same relation, meaning that if there is an inflation of the NFT market, this inflation on the NFT market could have a consequence on the value of the Ethereum. And here the idea is to ask the question: did this thing already happened? Meaning, did NFT already influence the Ethereum value? And here I quote Quantdesk, and basically here it's at the beginning of the year, and this little graph showcase superpose the Ethereum exchange deposit and the NFT volume. And here we can see that it's like it seems that this thing was correlated. And here it's a prediction. So as I explained before, Ethereum blockchain is working today on a proof of work, but is going to change and evolve on a proof of stake. And so my prediction, when this thing is going to happen, the expectation is to have a better network consumption, and basically a better because today the issue with proof of work, it's like the Ethereum network is constantly in constant mode, like congested. It's like there is too many one trying to use the network, but the network can handle all the requests. And so basically the effect of that, it's to have an increase for the transaction fee. And so the punchline to say that when this thing going to change, moving from proof of work to proof of stake, the transaction fee will decrease, and this thing should become like the last wall to have more people using this network. And meaning that today the narrative used on other blockchain around the fact that it's more cost effective, that you don't have this high fee transaction, will not be true anymore. And not only will not be true, but Ethereum will benefit from holding most of the NFT market already. So this thing, for me, it's like a prediction to say that in a short term, Ethereum will its value will be affected by this change, meaning that as the transaction fee will be lower, that will be better for all the stakeholder, which is a creator and a collector using the Ethereum network. And so this thing should increase also the use of the network, and so affect the value. But as any investment, there is a risk coming with, and so the NFT market is very volatile. And it's right now it's like the Far West, because a lot of people been scammed, and a lot of people are going to be scammed. And basically, you need to come up prepare to know how to navigate this world. And so here is the open question. If you know someone that can reply to that, or if yourself can reply to that, I invite you to reply to it, basically. And so the open question are, what is the standard of interaction in between blockchain? I know that there is some tools to use to do that, but there is a real standard? What is the things that pop up on your head when someone asks this question? What could be the thing to use if we need to move a token from a Ethereum network to a Solana, or to Solana and move that to Ethereum? What could be a viable solution? Did a viable solution exist to transfer from one blockchain to another? So it's the same question. And the last one, it's did you know a story of a token where its value was affected by the fact to be transferred from one network to another? And so in the abstract, it says that we have seen what is Ethereum and NFT. We have seen what is basic economic inflation. It seems that the NFT already influence the Ethereum value, and we also already seen the general investment rules to follow, and so the reply seem to be we need to be very cautious, because time is going to say if this thing is true or not. But today it seems that I can say 100% that yes, NFT is going to increase Ethereum, but it seems that there is some information that may say that this thing can happen. So here I'm done talking around this topic. It was a new episode of Digest by Robert. The topic of today was, will NFT increase Ethereum? So I hope that you enjoy the video. If you have any comment about some things that I need to keep doing, some things that I need to stop doing, or some things that I need to start doing, please say so, and see you on another video. So ciao.